The Great Hall of the Cosmic Assembly stretched for miles in every direction. Floating platforms held representatives from over 300 alien species. Some had scales, others had fur, and many had forms that no human could easily describe. Light from a dozen different suns filtered through the crystal ceiling, creating rainbows that danced across the massive chamber. Admiral Daniel Carter stood at the central podium. He was a tall man with gray hair and steady hands. Behind him, a holographic image of Earth rotated slowly, showing its blue oceans and green continents. This was the proudest moment in human history. After 50 years of peaceful contact with alien civilizations, humanity had finally been accepted into the cosmic assembly. On behalf of Earth and all its people, Daniel said into the translator device, I thank this assembly for welcoming us into the galactic community. We come in peace. We seek only friendship and knowledge. Applause filled the chamber. Most species clapped or made sounds of approval. The tall beings with silver skin nodded their heads in respect. The small creatures covered in soft blue feathers chirped happily. But not everyone was pleased. High Counselor watched from his elevated platform with cold, yellow eyes. He was a member of the reptilian species that had dominated galactic politics for over 10,000 years. His scales were dark green, almost black, and his teeth were sharp as knives. The Dominion controlled a quarter of the known galaxy, and they did not like competition. Leaned toward his advisor and spoke in a low hiss. These humans breed too fast and learn too quickly. In 1,000 years, they could challenge our power. His advisor, a younger named, nodded slowly. What do you suggest, High Counselor? His thin lips curved into something like a smile. We will solve this problem before it becomes a problem. 3 months later, Commander Laura Mitchell sat at her station aboard the research vessel Horizon's Edge. The ship floated in deep space, far from any star system, studying an unusual energy field. Laura was 32 years old, with short brown hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Commander, said her science officer, a young man named Peter Grant, I am picking up something strange on long-range sensors. Laura walked over to his station. What is it? Peter pointed at the screen. An asteroid, very large. It is heading directly for Earth. Laura frowned. Asteroids were common in space, but Earth had an excellent defense system. Any dangerous rock would be detected and destroyed long before it could cause harm. Wait, Peter said, his voice changing. I am detecting energy signatures inside the asteroid. This is not natural. Laura felt her blood turn cold. Can you identify the signatures? Peter worked his controls for a moment. His face went pale. The energy patterns match weapons technology. Someone has hidden a weapon inside that asteroid. Before Laura could respond, the asteroid reached Earth's outer defense network. It moved too fast for the automated systems to react. In seconds, it entered the atmosphere and struck the planet. The impact was beyond anything in recorded history. The asteroid hit South America with the force of 1,000 nuclear bombs. The explosion was visible from space. Fire spread across the continent. The shockwaves circled the globe 3 times, destroying cities on every shore. Laura watched in horror as the planet she loved began to die. Clouds of dust and ash rose into the atmosphere, blocking out the sun. Within hours, the temperature began to drop worldwide. No, she whispered, no, no, no. The Horizon's Edge received thousands of distress signals in the first minute, then hundreds, then dozens, then silence. Laura forced herself to think clearly. She turned to her communications officer. Send everything we recorded to every surviving human vessel. The sensor data, the energy signatures, everything. The galaxy needs to know what really happened. The message went out just before jamming signals cut off all human communications. On Earth, the death toll rose with terrifying speed. 2 billion people died in the first hour. The impact zone was simply gone, replaced by a crater filled with molten rock. Tsunamis hundreds of feet tall swept across the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, drowning coastal cities. The dust cloud spread, blocking sunlight and killing crops. Those who survived the initial blast fled underground. Old military bunkers, subway systems, and natural caves became shelters for the remnants of humanity. They huddled in the darkness, listening to reports that grew worse by the hour. Admiral Daniel Carter survived. He had been in Geneva when the impact occurred, attending a diplomatic conference. The city was damaged but not destroyed. He gathered what remained of Earth's government and military leadership in an underground command center. "How many?" he asked, his voice rough with grief. A young officer looked at her screen with tears in her eyes. "Sir, our estimates suggest 2 billion dead from the impact itself, possibly another 2 billion in the following days from tsunamis, earthquakes, and fires." Daniel closed his eyes. 4 billion people, more than a third of humanity, gone in a single day. "Sir," another officer said, "we received a transmission from the horizon's edge before communications went down. They have evidence that the asteroid was not natural. It was a weapon." Daniel opened his eyes. Something hard and cold settled in his chest. "Are they certain?" "Yes, sir. The sensor data is clear." 3 days later, the Cosmic Assembly held an emergency session. Daniel Carter attended via holographic transmission from his bunker. He looked like a man who had aged 20 years in 3 days. "The attacked Earth," he declared to the Assembly. "We have proof. Sensor data showing energy signatures inside the asteroid. This was not a natural disaster. This was murder on a scale the galaxy has never seen." High Counselor rose from his platform. His yellow eyes showed no emotion. "These are desperate lies from a dying species. The asteroid was a natural object. Our own scientists have confirmed this. Humanity is simply looking for someone to blame for their tragedy." Presented his own data, carefully fabricated by the best scientists. It showed the asteroid as a normal space rock with no artificial components. The Assembly debated for hours. Most species were unwilling to challenge the powerful Dominion. The evidence from both sides was examined and re-examined. In the end, the Assembly ruled that the impact was a natural disaster. Human membership was suspended for making false accusations against a senior member species. Daniel Carter was escorted from the virtual chamber. He returned to his bunker and looked at the faces of his surviving officers. They were waiting for orders. They wanted to fight, but Earth had no fleet capable of challenging them. Their ships were too few, their weapons too weak. "What do we do, sir?" asked the young captain. Daniel sat in silence for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but steady. "We survive, we rebuild, and we remember." He looked at each officer in turn. "The galaxy has abandoned us. They believe they have destroyed us. Let them believe it. Let them celebrate their victory. We will go silent, we will disappear, and we will prepare." "Prepare for what, sir?" Daniel's eyes were hard as stone. "For the day when we make them regret what they have done." Above them, Earth's sky turned gray with ash. The sun disappeared behind clouds of dust. Winter came in the middle of summer, and it would last for years. But beneath the frozen surface, humanity began its long, patient work. They had time, they had rage, and they had a purpose that would burn bright through the darkest years ahead. The galaxy would learn that humans were not so easy to kill. 20 years passed in silence. The galaxy forgot about humanity. They celebrated their victory in the first few years, then moved on to other matters. Other species sometimes mentioned the tragedy of Earth, but always in the past tense. The humans were dying, they said. Their planet was frozen and dead. It was only a matter of time before the last of them disappeared. They were wrong. Deep beneath the frozen surface of Earth, in caverns that stretched for hundreds of miles, humanity was very much alive. And they were busy. General Cole stood in the Central Command Center, located in what had once been the mountains of Colorado. He was 60 years old now, with white hair and a face marked by 20 years of hard work and harder choices. Around him, hundreds of officers monitored screens that showed every underground city on the planet. "Population report," he said. His aide, a young woman named Palmer, checked her tablet. "Current count is 412 million, sir. Birth rates are stable. Life expectancy has returned to pre-impact levels." Nodded. The first years had been the worst. Starvation, disease, and despair had killed millions more. But humanity had adapted. They had built farms underground, using artificial lights to grow food. They had created water recycling systems that wasted nothing. They had turned their anger into determination. "And the fleet?" asked. "Construction continues on schedule. We currently have 280 vessels complete. Another 50 will be finished within the year." In a massive cavern in what was once Utah, ships were being built. Not small ships, but warships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They were black as night, designed to absorb sensor readings rather than reflect them. Their engines were silent. Their weapons were new. Doctor had made it all possible. She was 55 now, but her mind was as sharp as ever. Her laboratory was located in a converted subway station beneath the ruins of New York City. She worked 18 hours a day, sleeping only when her body refused to function. 20 years ago, she had been a professor of theoretical physics. The attack on Earth had killed her husband and her 2 children. She had spent one day crying. Then she had gotten back to work. Her greatest achievement was the dimensional fold drive. Normal space travel took years or decades. Alien civilizations used warp drives or hyperspace lanes that were still slow by comparison. The fold drive was different. It bent space itself, allowing a ship to simply step from one point to another. A journey of 10,000 light years took only hours. "The latest tests were successful," said to during a video conference. "The fold drive is stable and reliable. Our ships can reach any point in the galaxy before the enemy knows we have left." But that was not her only invention. She had also created weapons that could bypass conventional shields. Every spacefaring civilization used energy shields for protection. They had been reliable for millions of years. Human weapons passed through them as if they were not there. "How is this possible?" had asked when she first demonstrated the technology. Had smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Their shields are designed to stop energy and matter. My weapons are neither. They exist in the space between dimensions. When they strike, they simply ignore the shields." Across the underground world, young humans trained for war. Captain Sharp ran the main training facility in what had once been Kansas. He was 38 years old, and he had been only 18 when the asteroid struck. He remembered the day clearly. He remembered watching the sky turn dark. He remembered his mother holding him as the ground shook. He remembered her death from radiation sickness 3 months later. Now he trained pilots and soldiers. He had studied every recorded battle in the galaxy's history. He knew how they fought, how they moved, how they thought. "They rely on overwhelming force," he told his students in a lecture hall carved from solid rock. "They build more ships, field more soldiers, and crush their enemies with numbers. They have not faced a real challenge in 5,000 years. They have grown lazy and overconfident." A young pilot named Amy raised her hand. "How do we beat them if they have more ships?" Smiled. It was a cold smile, the smile of a man who had spent 20 years planning revenge. "We do not meet them in open battle. We strike fast and disappear. We attack their supply lines, their communication networks, their command centers. We make them chase shadows while we burn their empire around them." Human spies were already in place throughout the galaxy. They had left Earth years ago, their bodies surgically altered to resemble various alien species. They walked among and dozens of other civilizations. They listened. They watched. They sent back information through secret channels. One of these spies was a man named Ward. His body had been changed to look like one of the small blue-feathered beings. He worked as a servant in the household of a noble, a position that gave him access to valuable information. "They believe Earth is dead," he reported to his handlers. "They joke about it at parties. They call it the cleansing. They are proud of what they did." Admiral Daniel Carter received these reports in his quarters. He was 80 years old now, but he refused to retire. He had been humanity's representative when the attack happened. He felt responsible for every death, for every child who would never grow up, for every city that now lay frozen and empty on the surface. "When we strike," he told during their weekly meeting, "we must not show mercy. The galaxy watched us die and did nothing. The murdered billions and faced no consequences. We will change that." Nodded. "The fleet will be ready within 2 years. We have ships, weapons, and soldiers. We have intelligence on every military installation. We only need your order." Daniel looked at a photograph on his desk. It showed his daughter, who had died in the tsunamis that followed the impact. She had been 23 years old. "My only regret," he said quietly, "is that I will probably not live to see it finished. I am old, my body is failing." "You will live long enough," promised. "And even if you do not, your work will continue. Every human alive today knows what we are fighting for." In the caverns of Earth, children went to school during the day and trained with weapons in the evening. They learned mathematics and science, history and literature. They also learned how they had tried to murder their species and why they must never forget. One of these children was Amy, who would grow up to be one of humanity's finest pilots. Her parents had both survived the attack, and they had told her stories about the surface world, about blue skies and green forests, about oceans that sparkled in the sunlight. "Will we ever see those things again?" she asked her father one night. He held her close and looked at the rock ceiling above them. "Yes," he said, "one day we will return to the surface, and we will rebuild everything they destroyed." The years passed, the fleet grew, the training continued, and deep in the heart of every human a fire burned that no amount of time could extinguish. Above ground, the first green shoots began to appear through the snow. The atmosphere was slowly clearing. The planet was healing itself. And humanity waited, patient as stone, for the day when they would finally rise. On the 20th anniversary of what they called the cleansing of Earth, High Counselor hosted a great celebration on Prime. The capital city sparkled with lights. Music filled the streets. Representatives from dozens of species came to honor the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. Stood on the balcony of his palace, looking down at the crowds below. He was old now, his scales faded to a lighter green, but his eyes were still sharp and cruel. He had risen to power by being smart and ruthless, and he had stayed in power the same way. 20 years, he said to his advisor who stood beside him. 20 years since we removed the human threat, and the galaxy is still ours. Nodded. Your plan was perfect, High Counselor. The humans were clever and growing stronger. If you had waited, they might have become a real problem. Laughed, a harsh sound like stones grinding together. They were insects. Clever insects, perhaps, but insects all the same. Now they are dying in their frozen caves, eating each other to survive. In another generation, they will be extinct. He was very, very wrong. Deep beneath Earth's surface, Admiral Daniel Carter stood before a camera. His image was broadcast to every underground city, every bunker, every shelter where humans had spent the last 2 decades preparing. He was 82 years old now, thin and frail, but his voice was strong. My fellow humans, he said, 20 years ago our world was attacked. Billions of our brothers and sisters were murdered. The galaxy turned its back on us. They left us to die. He paused, letting the words sink in. We did not die, we survived, we built, we prepared, and now the time has come. Across the underground world, people stopped what they were doing to listen. Children looked up from their lessons. Workers put down their tools. Soldiers stood at attention. Today, we launch Operation Homecoming. Today, we show the galaxy that humanity is not so easily destroyed. Today, we begin our return to the stars. In the shipyards of Utah and Colorado and Kansas, engines roared to life. 300 warships rose from hidden hangars, passing through tunnels that led to the surface. They broke through the ice and snow, climbing into a sky that humans had not seen in 2 decades. Vice Admiral Laura Mitchell commanded the primary assault fleet from the bridge of her flagship, the Defiance. She was 52 now, her brown hair streaked with gray, but her eyes were the same sharp eyes that had witnessed the attack on Earth all those years ago. "All ships report ready," her first officer announced. Laura nodded. "Begin fold sequence. First target is the sensor network at Grid 7. The fold drives engaged, reality bent, the stars stretched into lines of light, and then in the space between heartbeats the fleet was gone. They emerged on the far side of the galaxy, directly behind the border sensor station. The station was large, bristling with antennas and detection equipment. It was designed to give the Dominion early warning of any attack. It never had a chance. Human weapons struck the station in a wave of invisible energy. Shields meant nothing. Armor meant nothing. The station simply ceased to exist, broken into atoms in less than a second. "Target destroyed," reported the weapons officer. "No distress signal sent." Laura allowed herself a small smile, moved to the next target. For 6 hours, the human fleet moved through space like ghosts. They destroyed 47 sensor stations, 12 communication relays, and 3 patrol ships. Not a single warning reached the Dominion. Then the second phase began. Captain Sharp led a squadron of 50 ships toward the system, named after his advisor. It was a major military hub, home to the Third Fleet and thousands of soldiers. "Remember your training," told his pilots over the communication channel. "Fast strikes, constant movement, never let them pin you down." They emerged from fold space directly above the main naval base. Below them, hundreds of ships floated in orbital docks. Warning alarms began to sound, but it was too late. Squadron dove into the formation like wolves among sheep. Their weapons fired in rapid bursts, each shot finding its target. Ships exploded one after another. Those that tried to return fire found their weapons passing harmlessly through empty space where human ships had been moments before. "All squadrons status report," ordered. Gold Squadron, 16 kills, no losses. Silver Squadron, 22 kills, 1 ship damaged but operational. Bronze Squadron, 19 kills, no losses. Watched a battleship explode, its reactor cooking off in a ball of white fire. Press the attack, destroy everything. Across 12 systems, the story was the same. Human ships appeared without warning, destroyed their targets, and vanished before the enemy could respond. They scrambled to mount a defense, but they were fighting an enemy they could not see, could not track, and could not hurt. High Counselor received the first reports during his celebration. A servant rushed in with a communication device, his face pale with fear. "High Counselor, the humans, they are attacking, they are everywhere." Stared at him for a long moment. "That is impossible, the humans are dead." "Sir, we have confirmed reports from multiple systems. Human warships with weapons we have never seen. They are destroying our fleets." The celebration fell silent. Guests from other species looked at each other with fear and confusion. The most powerful civilization in the galaxy were under attack, and they were losing. Straightened his spine and forced his voice to remain calm. "Send the First Fleet. Send all available forces. Crush these insects once and for all." The First Fleet was the pride of the Dominion. 500 warships, each one larger and more powerful than anything humans had ever built. They gathered in formation and jumped to intercept the human forces. They arrived at the battle zone expecting an easy victory. Instead, they found hell. The human ships were smaller, but they moved with impossible speed. They appeared and disappeared, striking from unexpected angles, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted. Weapons fire splashed harmlessly against empty space, while human weapons tore through shields as if they were made of paper. Admiral, commander of the First Fleet, watched in horror as his ships died around him. "How is this possible?" he screamed. "They are primitives. They should not have technology like this." His second-in-command had no answer. Neither did anyone else. In 3 hours, the First Fleet was reduced to wreckage. Admiral's flagship was the last to fall, its bridge torn open to the vacuum of space. The Cosmic Assembly received panicked distress calls from colonies across the galaxy. The species that had ignored humanity's suffering, that had accepted the lie about a natural disaster, now watched in stunned silence as the dead rose to take their revenge. The collective called for an emergency session. "We must intervene," their representative said. "The balance of power is shifting." But other species were less eager to help. They had been arrogant and cruel for. Many civilizations had suffered under their dominance. Now, watching the Dominion burn, they felt something that surprised them. Satisfaction. Vice Admiral Laura Mitchell received a communication from the Defiance's bridge. "Admiral, we are receiving requests for surrender from 3 colony worlds." Laura considered for a moment. "Accept their surrender. Secure the colonies. We are not here to murder civilians. We are here for justice." The message spread quickly through the fleet. Humans were not monsters. They did not kill without purpose. But those who had ordered the attack on Earth, those who had celebrated the death of billions, would find no mercy. The war had only just begun, and humanity was just getting started. The war spread across space like wildfire. Every day brought news of another battle, another defeat for the Dominion. The galaxy watched in amazement as the species they had left for dead dismantled the greatest military power in known history. Admiral Daniel Carter coordinated the campaign from the command ship Defiance. The vessel was 3 kilometers long, a mobile fortress that served as humanity's headquarters. Daniel was confined to a wheelchair now, his body failing, but his mind remained sharp. "Status report," he said during the morning briefing. General Cole, commanding from Earth, appeared on the main screen. "We have taken control of 47 systems. Enemy fleet strength has been reduced by 60%. Civilian casualties have been minimal, as ordered." Daniel nodded. "And the main objective?" "Captain Sharp is leading the assault on Prime as we speak." Sharp felt his heart racing as his squadron approached This was the planet where the attack on Earth had been planned. This was where High Counselor lived. This was where justice would be served. "All squadrons prepare for atmospheric entry," he ordered. "Primary targets are the orbital defense platforms. Secondary targets are military installations on the surface. Avoid civilian areas." They had prepared for this moment. They knew the humans would eventually come for their capital. They had gathered every remaining ship, every weapon, every soldier to defend there. It was not enough. Squadron hit the defense grid like a hammer. The platforms fired everything they had, filling space with energy beams and missiles. But the human ships danced through the fire, their fold drives allowing them to jump short distances instantly, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. "Gold Squadron, take out the eastern platforms," commanded. "Silver Squadron, cover our approach. Bronze Squadron with me." The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the defense grid was in ruins. Their last fleet was scattered debris floating in orbit, led his squadron down through the atmosphere toward the capital city. High Counselor watched from his palace as human ships descended from the sky. He had aged 20 years in the past few weeks. His scales were pale, his eyes wild with fear. "My ship," he said too. "We must escape. I have contacts in the outer systems who will protect me." Nodded and led him to the private hangar beneath the palace. A small, fast ship waited there, designed for exactly this kind of emergency. Climbed aboard, his hands shaking. "Take off," he ordered the pilot. "Get me away from this cursed planet." The ship rose into the air and accelerated toward space. Allowed himself to breathe. He had escaped. He would rebuild. He would have his revenge. Then Captain Sharp's ship appeared directly in front of him. "High Counselor's voice came over the communication channel, calm and cold. "You are charged with crimes against humanity. The murder of 4 billion people. The attempted genocide of an entire species." His pilot tried to change course, but human ships surrounded them on all sides. There was nowhere to run. "You cannot do this," screamed. "I am a member of the Cosmic Assembly. I have diplomatic immunity. The galaxy will not allow this." His response was simple. "The galaxy did not protect us. Why should we care what the galaxy allows?" A single shot from ship disabled engines. The High Counselor was taken into custody, the first of many leaders who would face justice. On Earth, Doctor prepared to deploy her most controversial creation. She called it the Genesis Protocol, a technology that could reshape entire planets. It could terraform dead worlds into gardens. It could also do the opposite. "Are you sure about this?" General Cole asked her. "This is a terrible weapon." His face was hard. They have colony worlds where they breed their soldiers. They have planets dedicated to producing war machines. These are not innocent places. These are factories of death. Considered for a long moment, how many civilian casualties? "We will give them time to evacuate. Those who leave will be spared. Those who stay to fight will die." The Genesis Protocol was deployed against 6 military worlds. The technology worked by changing the atmosphere, making it impossible for to breathe but perfectly suitable for humans. The process took weeks, giving plenty of time for civilians to flee. Some chose to stay and fight. They died with their weapons in their hands. Others surrendered and were treated fairly. Humanity had not forgotten how to show mercy. Vice Admiral Laura Mitchell led a special mission to capture the Grand Archive, a massive installation where the Dominion kept records of their entire history. It was defended by elite soldiers and protected by the strongest shields they had. Human weapons passed through those shields without slowing down. Laura walked through the fallen defenders, her boots clicking on the stone floor. The archive was a beautiful place, filled with data crystals that glowed with soft light. It contained the knowledge of 10,000 years. "Download everything," she ordered her team. "Every file, every record, every secret." The download took 12 hours. When it was complete, Laura reviewed the files personally. What she found made her blood run cold. "Admiral Carter," she reported, "they have done this before. They have destroyed 17 developing species over the past 10,000 years. They identify civilizations that might one day challenge their power, and they eliminate them before they can grow strong." Daniel Carter closed his eyes. "So we were just the latest victims." "Yes, sir. And according to their records, we were not supposed to survive. They expected us to be extinct within 50 years. Daniel opened his eyes. They were filled with cold fury. "Share this information with every species in the Cosmic Assembly. Let them see who they have been bowing to for." The records spread across the galaxy like a shockwave. Species that had been loyal to the discovered that they had been living under the rule of genocidal monsters. Ancient alliances crumbled. Former allies turned their backs on the Dominion. The Cosmic Assembly demanded an emergency session. The Collective, one of the oldest and most respected civilizations, offered to mediate between humanity and the. Admiral Carter agreed to attend, but he made it clear he was not coming to negotiate. "We do not seek peace with murderers," he told his officers. "We seek justice, and we will have it." On Earth, General Cole oversaw the planet's reconstruction. Automated systems and advanced terraforming technology were reversing the damage from the asteroid impact. The atmosphere was clearing. The temperature was rising. For the first time in 20 years, a human child walked on the surface of Earth under open sky. She was 10 years old, born in the underground cities, and she had never seen the sun. "It is so bright," she said, shielding her eyes, "and so warm." Her mother held her hand and smiled through her tears. "This is what we fought for. This is why we never gave up." Across the planet, humans emerged from their underground homes. They stood on frozen soil and looked up at a sky that was finally blue again. Some wept, some laughed, some simply stood in silence, grateful to be alive. The war was not over yet, but Earth was healing, and humanity had proven that they could not be destroyed. The galaxy would never underestimate them again. The Great Hall of the Cosmic Assembly had never been so quiet. 300 species sat in their floating platforms, watching as Admiral Daniel Carter approached the central podium. He moved slowly, supported by a walking frame, but his steps were steady and his back was straight. 20 years ago, he had stood in this same spot to celebrate humanity's admission to the galactic community. Now he returned as something else entirely, not a victim, not a supplicant, a conqueror. The chamber was different this time. The platforms were empty. Their representatives were either dead, captured, or in hiding. The species that had once dominated the assembly were gone, their empire in ruins. Daniel reached the podium and looked out at the assembled aliens. He saw fear in many eyes. Good, he thought. They should be afraid. "I will not waste time with long speeches," he said, his voice carrying through the translation systems. "They attacked Earth 20 years ago. They murdered 4 billion people. You knew this. You chose to do nothing." He activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air, showing the records recovered from the Grand Archive. The destroyed 3,000 years ago when they developed faster-than-light travel. An image of a peaceful world, then fire, then nothing. The eliminated 4,000 years ago when they began building a space fleet. Another world, another extinction. Though the 17 species murdered before they could reach their potential, 17 civilizations erased from history, and the galaxy did nothing. Silence filled the chamber. Many species looked at each other with shock and shame. They had not known, or perhaps they had known but had been too afraid to admit it. "We are not here to ask for justice," Daniel continued. "We have already taken it. The Dominion is finished. Their fleets are destroyed. Their leaders are in our custody. Their empire exists only in history books." He paused, letting the words sink in. "But we did not come all this way just for revenge. We came because the galaxy needs to change. The strong cannot be allowed to prey upon the weak. Developing species must be protected, not destroyed, and those who commit genocide must face consequences." The representative rose from her platform. She was tall and silver, with eyes that had seen pass. "What do you propose, Admiral Carter?" "3 things. First, the leadership will stand trial for their crimes. Not in a human court, but in a galactic tribunal with judges from multiple species. Justice must be seen to be done." Several representatives nodded. This was reasonable. Second, the Cosmic Assembly will create a new body dedicated to protecting developing species. Any civilization that attempts to destroy a younger species will face the combined might of the galaxy. More nods. The memory of what they had done was fresh in everyone's minds. Third, humanity will take a permanent seat on the Assembly's Security Council. We have proven that we can protect ourselves. Now we will help protect others. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species supported the proposals immediately. Others were more cautious, but no one dared to argue against them. In the end, all three proposals passed by unanimous vote. The Dominion was formally dissolved. Their remaining military forces surrendered to human control. And for the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy had a new power at its center. Vice Admiral Laura Mitchell was appointed Earth's permanent representative to the Cosmic Assembly. She stood at the podium after the vote, her uniform crisp and her expression calm. "Humanity did not seek war," she said. "We only wanted to survive. We did not desire conquest. We only wanted security, but make no mistake, we will never again allow ourselves to be victims. We will never again trust our safety to others, and we will never forget what was done to us." She paused, looking at each delegation in turn. "Those of you who ignored our suffering, I understand. You were afraid. They were powerful and we were weak, but fear is no excuse for injustice. Remember that when you are tempted to look away from evil in the future." The Galactic Tribunal convened 6 months later on a neutral world. High Counselor and 47 other leaders stood accused of genocide. The evidence against them was overwhelming. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Spoke in his own defense, claiming that he had only done what was necessary to protect his people. The judges were not impressed. He was found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment in a special facility designed to hold the most dangerous criminals in the galaxy. As he was led away, looked at the human guards with hatred in his yellow eyes. "You think you have won," he hissed, "but my people will remember. We will rise again." Captain Sharp, who was overseeing the security detail, shook his head. "No, you will not. Your empire is gone. Your fleet is gone. Your power is gone. You are nothing but a lesson for future generations." Had no response to that. Captain Sharp was promoted to Admiral and given command of a new fleet. He called it the Guardian Corps, and its mission was simple: find developing species throughout the galaxy and protect them from those who would do them harm. His first mission took him to a small world on the edge of known space. The inhabitants were primitive by galactic standards, having only recently developed radio communications. They had no idea that other civilizations existed. Ordered his fleet to remain hidden. They would watch over this world from a distance, ensuring that no one interfered with its natural development. "One day," he told his officers, "these people will look up at the stars and wonder if they are alone. When that day comes, we will be there to welcome them, and we will make sure no one tries to destroy them before they can reach their potential." Doctor received the Assembly's highest scientific honor for her dimensional technology, but she cared little for awards. Her real satisfaction came from seeing Earth heal. She established the Terran Institute of Advanced Sciences, located on the surface of Earth in what had once been a frozen wasteland. Students from dozens of species came to learn from human scientists. The knowledge that had helped humanity survive was now shared with the galaxy. "We could have kept our technology secret," a young alien student asked her one day. "We could have used it to dominate the galaxy as they did. Why do we share it?" Smiled, and for the first time in decades there was warmth in her expression. "Because that is not who we are. We were hurt, badly hurt, but we did not let that pain turn us into monsters. We are better than we have to be." Admiral Daniel Carter retired to a small home overlooking the restored Pacific Ocean. The water was blue again, the beaches clean, the air fresh. He spent his days walking along the shore, watching the waves roll in. He was 90 years old now, and his body was finally failing. But he had lived long enough to see everything he had worked for come to pass. Earth was rebuilt. Humanity was strong. The galaxy was at peace. One evening, a young reporter came to interview him for a documentary about the war. She asked him what message he would like to give to future generations. Daniel thought for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice soft but clear. "Never forget what was done to us, but do not let hatred consume you. We fought because we had to, not because we wanted to. We sought justice, not revenge. There is a difference." He looked out at the ocean, at the sun setting over the water. "The galaxy has learned a painful lesson about humanity. We are not easy to kill. We do not give up, and we never forget those who wrong us. But we are also capable of mercy, of forgiveness, of growth. We are stronger because of what we endured, not weaker." The reporter asked one final question. "Do you have any regrets?" Daniel smiled sadly. "I regret every life lost, every child who died in the attack, every soldier who fell in the war, every family torn apart. But I do not regret fighting back. I do not regret surviving, and I do not regret teaching the galaxy that humanity is not to be underestimated." He died peacefully in his sleep 3 months later. The entire galaxy observed a day of mourning. Even species that had feared humans paid their respects to the man who had led them from near extinction to galactic power. Earth continued to bloom. Cities rose from the ashes. Forests spread across lands that had been frozen for decades. Children played under blue skies, never knowing the darkness their parents had endured. And in the great hall of the Cosmic Assembly, a statue was erected in the central chamber. It showed a human figure standing tall, looking toward the stars. Beneath it, an inscription in 100 languages carried the same message. Humanity endured, humanity adapted, humanity prevailed. The stars themselves bore witness to Earth's brutal, righteous revenge, and the galaxy was forever changed because of it.